So at this point, we've heard both kind of historical backgrounds from both sides. I'm going to open this up 2 or 3 minutes, questions that you guys have, anybody has in trying to clarify some of these points. I know I have some questions, and I know I have some comments from background of prevailing wage and construction costs in the state of California. And so I'm going to open this up for questions, either pro or against Measure G. So, any questions? Who wants to go first?
I'll take a shot. I'll start you guys off.
Okay, thank you.
As Andy stated, the population growth in Siskiyou County, even since 1987, has varied 1 or 2% in any given moment, up or down. I think in 1987, if we look back, population was probably around 40,000. I don't think the population has grown much since then. It seemed in 1987 that the jail that was just built was adequate. So the increase in incarceration rates kind of concerns me. The current ploy to say that we're into rehabilitation also kind of concerns me, because I believe it was in 2012 where the realignment money started coming in. Is that about the right year? I'm kind of shooting there a little bit.
2011.
And during those last 4 years, where has the realignment money gone? Has it gone to affect programs to keep people out of jail, or has it gone to the incarceration side?
I can answer that one for you right now if you'd like, because AB 109 is my specialty. So when AB 109 was passed, the state created the Community Corrections Partnership. So whatever amount of funding it is that they get, it has to go through the Community Corrections Partnership, which is led by the sheriff. It's led by, actually, the executive chair is Todd Hyde, the chief probation officer. The sheriff, the DA, the public defender, a representative from behavioral health also sit on this, as well as somebody from victim witness, several different people and agencies. The chief of police is there. They have a representative, and they all have to vote on how the money is spent. This group spent a very long time putting together their community corrections plan, which is on the county website if you ever wanted to read it. It's very lengthy. It's about 100 pages long. I think ours is probably one of the top in the state, to be honest, when it comes to creativity and innovation. We started a day reporting center that is unlike any other in the state. Our day reporting center works closely with the sheriff's department and with probation. We share the same people. So if Bob was sentenced, and I'm just going to use that as an example, to 180 days for his probation violation, he's going to get out of jail because there's not room in the jail for him to stay there. He is going to go to our day reporting center. He's going to work in the community. He's going to go home at night, and he's going to participate in rehabilitative programs, whether that's domestic violence, anger management. We have therapists from Healed Therapy. We use equine therapy with adult offenders. We are the only people in the state that have started that, and now Butte County is actually looking into that because it's been such a highly successful program. The domestic violence program, which we started last year, not one of our graduates has had a new incidence of family violence. So we've done a lot when it comes to that. We let out offenders that in the past, so my history, I'd been at the jail 3 years, and I did the swap crew, which is on the side of the road, because I was pregnant and that was our maternity leave kind of job. And we had people doing 48-hour commitments or 10 days for DUIs. I don't see those people at all at our day reporting center. Those people are on ankle monitors. They rarely, some of them are paying off fines. What we have out there are all felons with violent past, some of them. All are drug addicts, all have antisocial personality issues that we have to address. Bob brought up the stealing, all right? Stealing's a basic thing. We learn as children we shouldn't steal. But there's a large portion of our society that doesn't believe that's wrong.
Wells
So we
Fargo.
have a class to address that honesty, stealing, all of those things, those core values that are kind of missing from a certain portion of our population, we address that at the Day Reporting Center. We also run those programs in the jail as well. So all of the realignment money has not gone to enforcement. The only part of enforcement is they do some probation searches and they pay overtime for that. But that is I think it's $10,000 of that money is saved for that, and that is for the very high risk ones that are on the PRCS, which is post-release community supervision, which were released from prison. And so those are the ones that they use that money for. All of the other money is 100% towards rehabilitation.
And was that initiated in 2012, or was that initiated just recently?
It started in 2011 when the group came together, and
Well-
then piece by piece, we've added more staff. So a lot of what the money goes towards is staff, whether it's probation officers to check on people in the community to make sure that they're coming. Because when I have an offender not show up at their work program or participate in their program, then the probation officer goes to their home, or they call them and they say, you need to get here. And they get them here then. So that's where that money is gone, is towards staff. We use custody staff at the Day Reporting Center for safety reasons, obviously. We've taken weapons, drugs. I've been involved in altercations out there. It's not necessarily the safest job in the world. And you can't just throw one therapist or one social worker out there and say, hey, here's your 20 felons, rehabilitate them. You have to have safety staff for also. And that's just, it's unfortunate reality of our society.
And I hear what you're saying, but there's a study done by Stanford, I think 2014, that would disagree with some of what you're saying is how Siskiyou County spent their money, not only us, other counties as well. We didn't rank very high in that regard, so that was the basis of my question.
And I don't know about the Stanford study. I just know that I am a living component of that budget, and so I know that budget very well. I know where every part of it goes, because when I need something, last year we wanted to start a wood mill program, which has been incredibly successful. We mill all of our own wood, and we create these beautiful benches. People are learning woodworking, and I use the post-release community supervision inmates out there in this population doing this woodworking with this wood mill and chainsaws and all of these things that you just wouldn't even imagine. But when it comes down to it, when we had the idea for that program, it wasn't like I just went out and bought something. I had to do about a 30 to 40 minute presentation in front of the Community Corrections Partnership. They had to vote on it. Then I had to go to the Board of Supervisors. They also had to approve that expenditure. So it's not like there's willy-nilly money being spent. There's so much oversight that's done.
I wasn't concerned about the oversight. I was just concerned about how it was being applied into the community.
So that would be where I would argue the study is that I think it's 100% applied in the community. Our work crews are in the community. We've done work at schools, on the side of the road. Obviously, you see that all the time, and that's funded separately. But we do fuel reduction projects. The list actually goes on and on. Today they cleaned up homeless camps.
So you're saying the program's successful?
It is. It is successful. But there is a problem.
Expand more of that program instead of expanding the jail at much less cost?
So I would say I would love to do that. Here's my problem that I run into. I have people that don't want to participate in my program. And my only incentive right now is that when you decide not to come, say you have the 180-day sentence, or I've had people with 4-year sentences out there, serving a 4-year county prison sentence due to realignment, that we put them out on the work crew program. And they just decide, screw you, Ms. G, I'm not coming. Okay, what's your consequence? I take you to jail, where do you go? Oh, it's 1 for 1. I have to take 1 out. He talked a little bit about the incident where we had 2 individuals that both had crimes against children. One committed crimes against 14 and 15-year-old children, girls, and the other committed crimes against younger toddler age children. And neither of them, both of them had 90-day sentences. We only had 1 protective custody bed in the jail. Did either of those people, and both of them, their violations of probation were things for not attending their classes, not participating. Did either of those people really belong in the community at that time? No. Instead, I had to choose with a probation officer which one would suit us best. And unfortunately, yes, I chose the one that his prey was 14 and 15-year-olds. And I went home sick inside. I have a 14, 15-year-old daughter. But the hopeful part of me thought, well, at least a 14, 15-year-old can ask for help. Those are decisions that people shouldn't be making. Those are people that need to be incarcerated. And that's the problem that we are facing right now. When you look at our economy, when you look at our socioeconomic and everything else that's going on where we're at in this world, we have a growth problem, an industry problem. You're absolutely right. We don't have an industry for people. We also have people that aren't ready to go into industry either. They're heroin addicts. And you can't have a heroin addict get clean for 2 days in jail and then expect them to work all day. They need 30, 45 days to get clean. And then we can put them in a drug and alcohol program and they can be more successful. So that's my answer to that.
And there's people that get arrested, and it'd be nice to be able to detox them for 30 days and then put them in a program rather than have to release them and have them wait for a program. They're just going to go out and get high again. We don't have that option. And our jail is not a detox, but with a bigger facility, we could utilize it to keep these individuals off drugs, at least so that maybe a rehab might be beneficial to them. But if they go from using drugs today to expect to go into rehab tomorrow, one, the rehab won't accept them because they test positive. There's just a lot of things that our hands are tied.
Or if we want to do community-based rehabilitation and put them back in their families, because that is the best way to do it, is to reunite families, get people back where they need to be, get them jobs, all of those pieces. That short amount of time of sobriety is not enough. And when I've had the ability, when people have been pre-sentenced and they've stayed for 60, 90 days, those people are much more successful than the ones that have the 2 or 3 day turnaround. So there's a lot of benefits to being able to offer more rehabilitation to an incarcerated in custody population so that they can really go out and fight what's in the real world facing them. Because they go back to homes where people are using. They're in neighborhoods where their neighbor is selling drugs. They come to the work program and they tell stories that are they're heartbreaking and they're disturbing. I don't know how my staff actually functions sometimes after they've heard some of the things all day long. But when you still have your drug dealer knocking on your door at 3 o'clock in the morning when you're trying to stay clean and you've only got 20 days clean, what are you gonna do? How hard is that? Who are you gonna call? And they call us. I get calls at Sunday night at 2 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning at 6 o'clock in the morning. I have staff out there that they leave their cell phones on and they talk to people and help them make the right decisions. But that can only go so far sometimes.
And as far as the first part, in 87, the jail was built for 68. We now has what's almost double. I don't know that they anticipated that. You're absolutely correct. It has doubled, but what makes we don't know what the state's going to do. If Prop 57 passes, it could create more problems on our jail. Realignment created a lot of havoc. Before realignment, it was a year in jail. That's all you did. After realignment, now we could have people up to 20 years in our jail. We got to provide medical. We got to provide a lot of things. And he talks about the cost of it. There's a lot of requirements of Title 24 costs. I got a list here. Take it. It talks about construction costs of what other facilities, other counties are paying. We're right in line with that. We're not. It's just the nature of the beast. You can't compare building a jail with building a house.
I wasn't questioning the
yeah.
cost.
So I wish the cost of a jail was the same as the cost of a house, because I wouldn't have to come in here and ask for the voters to vote yes on this. But
and when it comes to programs, we also have Wairika High School out there teaching. We have a partnership that we're working towards with the college right now. We have Heal Therapy. Behavioral health works with us. We have a psychiatrist actually that comes 2 hours a week. People's needs are met. Unfortunately, I think that we are at the capacity that we can't work with some of the people that we're now working with. 90%
of our population is pretrial. There might be a problem with bail. Maybe the bail laws, they're talking about it, the state, let's fix the bail law, allow people to bail, but this population ain't gonna bail out. I got 6 people in there for homicide right now. That's the most I've ever had. So, and then a quarter of mine is really very heinous sex crimes of some sort. So it's just a bad situation, and this jail wasn't designed. It was designed to house misdemeanors that we don't house anymore. So we need something. and to keep our community safe. I mean, I used to go home at night and sometimes I lock it, sometimes I wouldn't. Don't know if I locked my car, didn't, now. I lock it every night. I lock my house every night.
And I get what you guys are saying, but wouldn't it be better to apply more pressure to the Sacramento area they close down jails to save their budgets?
Well, I get it.
Dangle the carrot in front of ours.
I beg to differ. The Supreme Court forced them.
Yeah.
Yes, and then the same inmates that sued the state are now in our jails. So when they sue a county jail, which there's already been suits in Monterey County and Kern County, I think there's a big one right now in Riverside County, that's gonna control a lot of things in the state. And if they put some restrictions that's gonna control how every county jail in the state operate, we're in trouble. We looked at redesigning this. If we knock down a wall, we have to be compliant throughout our facility, ADA. They didn't have ADA standards back in the 80s.
If I could respond to this just a little bit, because again, I think one of the points is that they're looking at their population day to day, and they're looking at it on a very much of a micro level, that I have these sex offenders, I have these people in for domestic violence, I have things like that, and all of that is absolutely valid. But when you take it up and look at the whole thing in context, that 25,000 to 160,000 incarceration rate in the state prison, and now that has become untenable, unconstitutional by the U.S. Supreme Court, that people were dying in the state prison system because they weren't getting medical care, stuffed to the gills. So now the state is trying to push that down, and it may be that because we're at the edge of it, we're the 44,000 person county, the ones that we're getting, we're having a bit of an anomaly effect. On the bigger level, that's not going to solve the problem. We have to deal with what is it that we did in the state of California in passing some of these laws that gave long sentences to people who stole a pizza and they're 65 years old and they've got a 30-year sentence. We got a lot of that stuff. I think there's some truth. It's like the blind man and the elephant. Depending on which piece you grab onto, you can find some truth in any of this. When we're looking at what do we do as a criminal justice system, and I'm hearing a lot of things that are great efforts, and I know that both of these people standing at the table with me are the ones who will have their cell phone turned on, and we'll do the best. That's what we can do as a small county. We're not LA County where everybody's a number. We have a whole different situation, and a lot of it's really positive. But what has changed since 1980 to today, a lot of that has been driven by the state of California's policies and over-incarceration. And so the point at which the cup spills over, maybe everything that's spilling over into our county is bad people, whatever. I'm concerned about the mental health situation.
We're not getting prisoners from state. I don't know where. We're not. The people we have in our jail committed a crime in our county. That's who's in our jail. We're not getting transfers from state because of some other. We're not getting those
people who are here who would have gone to state prison are staying here.
Yes.
Right, yes, they don't go.
Yes, they don't go.
So it's kind of a flow. You get people that are going through your jail, and so you have some people that, if you're in for homicide and you're a horrible murderer, I'm all for some of those folks going to state prison and shut the door, and if you behave, we'll let you make license plates. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But if you have a population of people who are going to get out, and they're going to get out in a year, or they're going to get out in 2 years, the public safety really demands that what we do with those people while we have them includes some real effective intervention. And the cost with limited resources that we have $37 million, if we started tomorrow with a clean slate, $37 million, here you go, what would you, blank sheet of paper, what would you do? I don't think the first thing that we would do is build a facility for 300 people. Not from what I hear from you all. I hear that you would be doing more of these kinds of rehabilitative efforts, because that's, I know you get frustrated in your job, but I also know that you've made some successes in this because of the person to person. You're going to solve this problem, I think, one person at a time.
So my response to that would be very simple, is that first, I absolutely agree that the state failed. I would not ever disagree with that. I have very strong opinions about the state of California, and this is being videotaped, so I'm not gonna share all of them. But the state did fail. The Supreme Court said it failed. It failed on so many levels. But when you have an over-incarcerated population, and then those people get out, and they come home, they didn't learn any skills. They didn't learn anything new. In fact, they learned some new things. They did not learn good things. And so that is the population that we have. That is where that is a big part of our problem. And they're raising their children with those new values.
Is that accounting for the rate? I mean, what Ken's question was when the jail was built, you had a certain percentage of the population that were criminals. And I think you can look at different countries, you can look at different, again, I'm the numbers guy.
I've had
Has
parents
this-
and children at the same time in the work program. So I would say that there are some family issues that definitely drive that. But to finish what I was saying, I would still want a jail, mostly because what we have is so antiquated. And I look at things a little different than Lieutenant Huston at times, and we don't always agree. But, the thing is that if we want to provide quality programs, we want to provide quality rehabilitation, which is what I hear you guys saying, I want this quality. I can't do that in the facility that I have. I can't do it safely. I have a weird little classroom that used to be a law library that we painted a happy color because we thought it might be better. We don't have the infrastructure to use the technology that's out there that other counties are getting to use. We don't have the safety, the way to move inmates through. We don't need extra staff for this jail. We just need to be able to safely move them. There's different things that we look at, and I know it's microscopic in your opinion, but it is realistically, I can't just we can throw all of us in a room and we're all gonna be fine. I can't throw all those people in a room and everybody's gonna be fine. It's not gonna work because two people aren't gonna get along, and we've had fights in church and jail. So we have to look beyond and that safety, and I want a jail that I can rehabilitate people in and make a better community. I've been dedicated to this community my whole life. And a new jail, yeah, it will make a better, stronger community because we will be able to keep that person for a year, teach them skills. They'll get out, they'll be on the work program, they'll be held accountable, but maybe they stay for 6 months so that services can be provided to their families through CPS, through all of these other avenues, and not just one portion.
I guess that still doesn't completely answer my question, because I agree with you that that's an important thing to intervene with people, but again, the question is, we in America have 5% of the world's population and 25% of its prisoners. So when you benchmark what you're doing as a public policy, getting a few levels above, I'm here in the jail day to day, I'm seeing this is what I need, I get it. But when we look at a public policy and we look at benchmarking it in a really meaningful way, what is it that we're doing differently than in 1987? What is it that we're doing differently than the rest of the world? And I think we have to ask ourselves those questions when we're looking at taking our tax dollars, which, I don't know about you, when I pay state income taxes, it's the same as the county taxes. It's not free money, it's not a grant. And when this money is being spent so, you're getting, I'll bet 50% of the dollars that are coming into the tax is actually showing up in your jail. The rest of it's going to Wall Street. We've got Prop 13, which required a 2/3 vote. And the fact of the matter is that we could pass Measure G, and there's a certain probability that that's going to be challenged because they decided to not have an advisory measure and general tax measure. They decided to put the whole thing all in one big measure and say this is a special purpose and it's a general tax. Well, that's very legally shaky to be able to do it that way, and it doesn't respect what our supervisors are very conservative, and there's the first time they came before them it was 3-2, and then arms were twisted and it became 5-0. But the first time it came up, it would not have been on the ballot. It needed 4 votes to go on the ballot, and it was because of this 2/3 thing. Simply that people change their mind doesn't change that situation, so.
We're doing a lot of things different than the 80s. We're rehabilitating. Back when we started, we put people in jail and they did their time and then they got out. We provided no rehabilitation whatsoever. So our philosophy has changed drastically since we started incarcerating people in the 80s. So we have changed, we've adapted, that's the way it is. This $27 million that we're getting to build this jail, they aren't giving money out anymore like that. It's all about rehabilitation. So any other grants or any other state lease revenue bonds, by the way, about 0.5% will go to Wall Street on this lease revenue bonds, not half. I can't think of a contractor that would come up here and build a jail to give all the money to Wall Street. It just doesn't make any sense. That's just 0.5% will go to Wall Street for the sale of these lease revenue bonds, is how
Well, that's
that
the
goes.
commissions on it.
So that's, anyway,
Yeah.
so I just can't see construction companies coming, it just doesn't make any sense to me. They're not,
I'd
but,
like to add, we talk about construction, I think one of the problems with construction is there's a lack of competition in building, only a few companies.
and it's union,
Yeah.
prevailing wage.
And
They're gonna have to
there's
pay
only a
prevailing
few,
wage.
and there's only a few companies that can, there's no competition, or very little competition there. Some of the things that, where I voted against it when it came through, because I was under the mindset of, hey, I've seen over the last 20 years, I really thought that the system was messing up statewide. I've seen a lot of lives just starting off with a little traffic violation from one in that fine, not paying that fine, not being able to take care of that. And that simple little process there's a lot of people that fall through the cracks. And once they get into that mode, they're basically unemployable. They lose their driver's license because they haven't paid the fine. There has been some changes in that. But as I got closer to it, and we had an opportunity to go up and work with Allison's group a few times, I could see that, hey, it's changing. The idea is changing. I think that's why this forum is so important, is the county really needs to, people in the county need to take a personal look at this to decide what they want, what we want. Rehab is where it's at. The idea, number 3 here, it said yes and maybe G. Violent crime and property crime rates are rising. Yes, they are, but I actually see that as if we're locking them up, isn't going to change that. Working with the rehab will. As far as locking people up, it's failed, and it's become an industry in itself that really. Concerns me. One other thing I wanted to talk about and ask Allison. I've been your program. I endorse it fully. But what do you think? How would it change for you, a new jail for your day reporting center?
Oh, it would strengthen my program, absolutely, because there would be accountability.
Classrooms. What are you going to?
So
the actual.
The actual design of the jail. Actually, I was brought in on that. As far as that, there's actually 2 different sets of program areas. One where we can have a computer lab and some other stuff. One where there's not that, so we can bring civilians in. A lot more in the way of being able to provide so many different types of program, whether it's vocational. A lot of people aren't ready for vocational programs. You can't just throw somebody in a vocational program. You have to work with their belief system. You have to work with their drug and alcohol issues, anger management, things like that first. So there's actual private rooms for therapists and chaplains, and a lot of things that give us just a lot more ability to do things in a better way than what we have now. The accountability piece for what we have at the Day Reporting Center is huge, because all of a sudden people know that there is a consequence for not showing up and not participating. And suddenly they want to participate then because they don't want to go. And the other piece is, yeah, I agree, property, violent crime, it is all up. Because we're letting the same people out over and over and over again. And when we catch them, if we don't release them right away and instead we rehabilitate them, maybe they won't commit that same crime again. But right now, no matter what we do, we have to catch and release them. So we want to catch, keep them, fix them, then let them out.
Okay. I just want to say, you know, in terms of statistics that we've had in this county, I know that there was almost $250,000 grant that was, had to be repaid back to the State Department of Justice because the crime statistics that were in support of that grant were not true. And, you know, I'm sure everybody tries to gather the statistics in the best way possible. When we look at the California trends, we have seen in recent years, as we have an aging population, which seems to be one of the main reasons that people stop being criminals, that they get too old to do it. And we have seen that the crime rates in the state of California over the last 5 to 10 years have gone down. If we're going up this year or whatever, I can't imagine it's more than a blip. And when you look at statistics, when you have a small population and you have a small movement, then the rate goes up wildly. So I'd be a little bit skeptical. I mean, I don't have a basis for challenging or saying it's not true, but I'd be a little bit skeptical about making $37 million statistics with, or $37 million decisions based on those kinds of statistical research. So.
I work it every
I finally
day.
get a question.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of talk about like, 300 beds for the jail, which I assume is it would be the new facility as well as the old facility.
180 beds. We're not done.
It's 180
It's
that's
180.
designed to go to 300.
The infrastructure is going to be built to expand, unlike this current jail. This current jail was built.
What's going to
for-
happen to the current jail?
That's unknown.
Can it still
There's
be
been a
used?
lot of talk. They've been talking about dealing with mental health, the mental health facility. They could tear it down. They could use it for anything.
My understanding, and it's not my understanding, it's something also Andy said that, 92% of the inmates are on psychiatric drugs.
40%.
40%.
That was incorrect. It's 40%.
40%. So basically, the people on psychiatric drugs could be in that facility, from what you're saying. But you're talking, see, this is, I want to understand, because if you're talking about 300, a 300-bed jail, and you have like 100 odd right now in the jail, including 40%. I don't know if they're in jail because of psychiatric problems, or if they're in jail because they actually broke the law.
The current design is 180 beds.
Right.
300 would be if we added on another unit. That's
Okay.
if we needed it. So
But
right now, we're
what
trying to build 180
What I'm
beds.
trying to understand is, what I'm getting an impression from what you two are saying is that you could go to 180 right now for all the people who are not going to their program, et cetera.
I don't think we could.
so.
I don't think we
No.
could. I truly don't think we could. There's talk that says we could fill it up. I don't think we're going to do a whole lot different than we do now. Our intent is to continue to rehabilitate the population and allow the ones out that we think might be successful, or the courts and the DA. We have a good relationship with all the justice partners, and we try to do what's best for the community, but right now, our hands are tied. We're having to really make decisions based on an overcrowded jail, and I
Well,
think a new jail would.
This is the real question, I think, that everybody is struggling with right now, is what would actually make it an uncrowded jail?
So one problem we have is classification. And that comes back to when we talked about the protective custody and females or gang members, which we do have a lot of gang members, different things like that. So we only have 10 female beds. Well, when you have 13 female offenders, what do? 3 have to go, right? You can't make them share. So the new design gives you the ability to have 13 female beds or this many PC beds. It gives us ways to break things up. The jail that we have that was designed was not designed to do anything like that. So that gives us choices as correctional staff.
And what happens when you have an inmate that doesn't get along with this inmate? Where do we put them? So now we got to separate them. Well, then this inmate doesn't get along with this inmate. Eventually, I'm running out of room to put an inmate, and I don't have single cells.
I understand
So
your
that's
situation
so,
as
yeah.
it currently is. I understand the status quo, but I think the real issue is like, from what you've said, I think there's two things. I would question the need for an additional 180 beds, depending on what you want to do with the old facility. And, oops. But there's, I guess one of my concerns is an issue of, you've said that it had to be 180 beds because of the grants.
Yes,
So
that's what we
there's no
applied.
choice
We cannot reduce the scope.
make
We've
a smaller
tried.
jail.
We've addressed the state. We've tried. We cannot reduce the scope. To receive that $27 million that we received,
Yeah.
it has to be a 180-bed facility. That's
So-
what.
Well, I think I want to say this as, someone who's worked for the legislature and worked in bureaucratic organizations, you will have a guideline that'll say this. And there is still some conversations back in the back. I think it's significant that when the financial problems started to raise their head, they were able to go back and say 150. And then it went back and they said no, so they were now at 180. There's more people involved in this than our local Siskiyou County citizens. There's massive companies, architectural firms, construction companies, and so forth that are taking our tax dollars for this. And of course, they want the bigger the better. And that's, I think, a little bit of what's going on here, is that a lot of this money is not going towards our the things we would like to do if we had the autonomy. When we had the Board of Supervisors meeting, there were 3 meetings that happened after the defeat of Measure S. And in each one of those meetings, the supervisors asked the sheriff's staff, what does the Board of Community Corrections say about the possibility of building a smaller jail? And at each of those, the answer was, they're not returning our phone calls for 3 weeks, okay? I don't know if I'm a staff person there, but the state is going to keep providing for as long as all of us are alive and as long as our children are alive. The state is going to keep providing money to counties for all kinds of things. To say that this is it, we don't do it, I've seen used car salesmen say that. We're going to have opportunities, if this doesn't pass, to rethink this. And in my mind, that's a good thing.
We're not going to have opportunities.
I think you're
We are
assuming
not
a
gonna
lot
have
of
opportunities.
facts and situations and using outside experiences and past experiences that don't necessarily project on this current position. So,
But I mean, you can't say that the state's never going to give us money again if we don't take this.
I can tell you right now, they're not going to give us money for jail beds. Absolutely 100%. There's no money out, the money is going to be for rehabilitation. And the maximum that they're going to give us is going to be $20 million, which now is $7 million less than we're getting, and we're still going to be $10 million short. That's if we build it today. So if this happens and we apply for another lease revenue bond opportunity in 3 years, if this doesn't happen, or next year, we're only going to get $20 million, and we still are not going to be available to or able to build that facility.
That's my concern is
Tuolumne's loving it right now, because I believe Tuolumne County is next in line, and they're hoping Siskiyou County doesn't pass this, because Tuolumne's County is going to get SB 844 money, which is out there for facilities who did not receive, and it's $20 million max, and there's a good possibility, well, they're going to get money from this, and they could get $27 million, so they could come out of here with about $47 million.
my concern is with Andy's being that more funds are going to be coming our way. I would like to hope for that too, but that there's no guarantee of that. I'm with the feeling now that we have an opportunity here. Can we work with the sheriff to make sure, or not, no way we can make sure, but I think there's an indication that we're going towards rehab. That's really where
That's the statewide trend to start.
well, that's, but I think for us not to do anything, I mean, we have a situation here now that that if somebody gets picked up, matter of fact, we've had somebody, and I've told the story before, we've had somebody in Weed here, got picked up 3 times in the same day for petty theft. Okay, he's a heroin addict, okay, but 3 times, we couldn't do anything for this person at all. Like, the only thing we did is we took him up to Wairika and turned and they, I guess, booked him, released 3 times in the same day.
But, you know, I
Then
don't know
Wairika
if
gets to deal with it.
there are city facilities, I think, you know, holding facilities and stuff like that. I've had a lot of complaints.
But
I
there
talked
is-
to different people
But
around.
there isn't, right now, we don't
There
have,
isn't.
we don't have anything
That's,
to,
my question to
even
you,
mental
Andy,
health.
would be, is you are in a negative, you're a negative proponent, you don't think this is a smart way to spend
I'm
$37
not.
million. What's your solution?
That's a great question.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
my boss always
Yeah.
tells me, don't come
Yeah.
to me with a problem, come to me
Yeah.
with a solution.
So
what-
that
what would
is a
you-
great question.
What would your
and,
solution be?
And I do have some answers on this.
Okay, great.
And I think it has to do with looking at the resource allocation that's available to the counties. Again, one of the truisms is that we have a limited amount of ability to drive this. And the other truism is that the trends that we're looking 5-10 years down the road are not towards we're going to have a 300-bed jail. I'd say the trends are more likely to be we're going to look at ancillary places that are specially designed mental health facilities for the shoplifter that gets three times in a day. Well, you know, the mayor of Dunsmuir is one of the people who signed my petition, and he's talked to me about, you know, that's a long drive up I-5 from Dunsmuir to Wairika. And when you take an officer to take an inmate up to Wairika from Dunsmuir, that takes that officer off the street for 2-3 hours. And that's a problem for law enforcement. I think one of my solutions would be to look at facilities that are dispersed among the county, that would be more appropriate for these people that we're complaining we can't do anything with now. And there's also a couple of other techniques that are in the criminal justice area. One of them is a harm reduction. We've got all these people that are on drugs, and when you look at the whole concept of harm reduction, you know, I think I said at the Tea Party Forum that maybe we need soft places for people to fall down. And in the instance, there are people who are going to just be deciding to be taking their meth or their heroin or whatever, and there have been successful attempts, programs in other states and countries that will just say, okay, you're a drug addict, you know what, stay away from my TV, here's a place you can have some drugs. And that maybe it is a little bit of a self-defeating thing, but it keeps the TVs.
I see, it's not, I don't think it's, Andy, with all due respect, I don't see it that black and white. I really think that a lot of drug addicts and alcoholics that I come in contact with, they are drug addicts and alcoholics because their life is so unmanageable. They are the thieves. They you know, we are the thieves. I'm one of them. I'm a recovering thief, alcoholic myself. But a lot of time, when you say a drug addict, the drug addict it's not just he needs drugs. He needs relief from the lifestyle that he's living.
Mm-hmm.
He's frustrated. He is in my own story is just being a criminal or knowing that I was a thief, doing whatever I could get away with. That was what made me drink more. And
Sure.
I was trying to really, so when we talk about a drug addict or alcoholic, I don't think it's really fruitful at all to just say that's what they are. That's that lifestyle. It's the lifestyle that Alice is trying to work on here, and that's, if we're going to keep people from jail, we have to change this lifestyle. A 300-bed facility.
We don't have to build a 300.
Right,
My
we don't.
goal is we don't have to. But at least we're capable of
We can
doing
use it for, one of my point is we can use it for other things.
Well, we could, yeah.
Expanding programs. We don't know what we're going to be in 15 years from now. Because this is a new concept. It really, lock them up has been worked for hundreds of years. Lock them up. Well, it doesn't work anymore. We've locked so many people up that we've brought, we have a social malady that we're suffering from. We've created a subculture. We have created a subculture now that the only way we're going to help these people is changing a lifestyle, and it's going to take a facility and and sometimes beds. I mean, we got to put somebody up for 3 weeks, 30 days to get, to be able to, that they can come out and function in even in your program.
I don't want to make the mistake that we made in the 80s. I don't want to build a jail that's too small. I
Right.
want to build something that if we have to, we can grow into it. That's the whole intent.
it
If we
doesn't-
don't have to, great.
We don't have to lock
The
people
idea
up.
of just speaking of growing into
Oh, yeah.
it bothers me.
But
Yeah,
growing
yeah,
into
but
it,
what
growing
happens,
into it could be many
we
things.
aren't
It could be a
capable of
mental
growing
health
into this one.
facility. It could be a
I
safe
just,
haven.
what I find is strange is that the rhetoric that started off growing this jail had nothing to do with rehab. That's what I'm having a problem with. The speaking of rehab is something recent, at least in my mind. I do not see anything in the papers or anything that just says when this jail was proposed about rehab at all. So what I infer is that you're looking at incarceration, not rehab. Well, I'm just saying, I read a lot.
Yeah.
I read a lot and I remember a lot.
There's a lot out there.
Yeah,
There's a lot of untruths out there.
I would like to address
about
this though, because I was in the same boat. I voted no on the first measure in the primary, and I was in the same boat as you. We don't need to build more walls, no more bars, and more beds. I was a huge proponent of that, and I believe in that. I was also aligned with you, Andy, saying, if we're gonna throw $37 million at this, let's throw it at a work camp. Let's, have cattle and a farm and teach them a trade. But that's not the nature of the beast that we have here. Now that I have met with the Sheriff's Department, I've come and found out the rehabilitation that's happening at the Day Reporting Center and what they're trying to use the Day Reporting Center to infuse into the jail, but they're incapable of doing so because they don't have the correct facilities to do that.
Another element we're leaving out is probation. Todd High, Allison mentioned Todd High with the probation. The program there is quite different than the lieutenant's philosophy. I talked to him last couple years ago. We first started talking about this. That his idea was lock them up. That was going to take care of it. The probation, Todd High's program up there has got state and national recognition. This is all new stuff. But when Allison says that this is program working here, this is new. This is the new perception of how we're going to deal with this.
It's been there for 4 years. It's not,
That's
it's not
a
brand
baby.
new.
That's
Yeah.
a baby.
Right, I'm just saying it's been, and
compared
it's
to
and the
200
Sheriff's
years.
Department is the one that runs the
And that's the
reporting
Sheriff's
center.
Department's program. That's not the probation. That's the Sheriff's.
Right, but what I'm saying is, overall, it's changing. And I want to say this, and I'll leave it, is that the people I've been up there in Allison's program and in Todd High's program, these people are enjoying their jobs because they're starting. They're being productive. It's not the same thing. The most depressed person that I knew before were probation officers because it was just a joke. They're actually changing lives now. The last thing I'm going to say is I think that the Sheriff's Department has failed to put the emphasis on the rehab or to show to show what you are doing as far as rehabbing. I think that I don't think that. I think you would have been a lot more productive to come out with it. This is what we're about. We're not the idea here of violent crimes and property crime rising. We need a new jail now. That's scaring people. I don't like that. What I'm concerned about is the rehab in these people, and I think we're making. I know we're doing different things than we did before.
And I agree, but some people.
Okay, but I kind of
Go ahead, yeah.